What's happening, y'all? I'm Sir William, and this is Apple, my 2015 Toyota 4Runner. I've been traveling in Apple since 2015, overlanding all across the United States, and I've played with various different roof storage setups. By far, the one that I rocked the longest, though, was just a cheap, extra long roof basket, and for the most part, it did exactly what I needed it to do. That was up until it started rusting and leaving rust stains and stuff like that all down the side of Apple. And then in 2020, whenever I moved full-time on the road, I needed something that would hold a little bit more. I was working with a company where I would be taking traction boards all across the nation and showing them off to different people. I needed a way that I could carry lots of traction boards. And you know, I had taken a look at some of the various different roof rack options that were available, and there was a couple things that left to be desired. First and foremost, the price of all the roof rack systems out there seemed extremely high, and well, your boy's on a budget. The other thing is I noticed that most all your roof racks seem to be the same kind of design. It seemed to be some aluminum rails going down the side, and then some extruded aluminum that went across the bars. And knowing what I know that extruded aluminum is pretty easy to be had. So I set out to design my own roof rack. And around that time, I found a guy on YouTube named Superfast Matt who actually did just this, and he built his own roof rack. So loosely following his design, I decided that I'd build my own roof rack. The only prerequisites that I had was I wanted it to be cheaper than the other ones on the market. I needed it to hold a decent amount of weight, and I wanted it to go the full length as well as be able to hold a 4x8 sheet of plywood. So this is what I came up with, a super simple roof rack made out of two primary components, this angle aluminum here and this extruded aluminum as the crossbar. The angle aluminum on the side is the 3-inch angle aluminum, and this would allow for things like awnings to be mounted up on the side. As you see there, that was an awning that failed in the wind. RIP Iron Man 4x4 awning. As for the crossbars, well, I used these 1x1 extruded aluminum pieces from T-Nuts. Now, I can't really give a good recommendation to the company T-Nuts, as they were kind of hard to deal with and their customer service sucks. So you can find this extruded aluminum in many different places. Just know that I used the small pieces of extruded aluminum. The idea behind using extruded aluminum was I'd be able to attach things wherever I wanted to. It'd be a real modular type setup. As for mounting it to the truck, it's a super simple process. There is 2 sets of spacers on each side. There's some short ones up front and then some taller ones in the back. And I got these spacers from a company called McMaster Car, which you can get, well, anything to build anything you want from this company. I'll try to leave a link down in the description below for the exact spacers that I use, but the ones in the back here, as you can see, are a good bit taller. The reason for this is so that way you can compensate for the curve on the roof line of the 4Runner. From there, I used some bolts and some washers to go through those spacers, and then I cut slots in the 3-inch angle aluminum in order to slide them on there. As you can tell, this is absolutely a DIY project and looks as such. It does not look professional at all. But you know what? It's worked nearly flawlessly for like 2 years now. I've mounted things on the side of it. I've mounted things on top of it. I've walked on top of it. I've had people hang out on top of it. This thing has been an absolute champ for something that, you know, I just kind of threw together. And as far as cost goes, man, this thing was less than $500 all in, including paint and everything. Getting the angle aluminum was a little bit tough, but luckily I found myself in Grand Junction, Colorado, and I found a metal place there. I'll leave it down here in the bottom, and they were fantastic to work with. I told them the dimensions I need and the fact that I wanted it at a 45-degree angle, and voila, next thing you know, I had 2 pieces of raw aluminum that went the full length of my truck, and I was able to get my roof rack started. Unfortunately, at the time that I was building this rack, the entire world was being affected by a flu that was going around, so it took a little bit longer to get the extruded aluminum from T-Nuts, but when I finally received it, I was able to put together the rack out in the middle of nowhere, literally in the middle of nowhere. We were outside of Glacier National Park up in Montana when I was finally able to put this thing together. In order to put it together, I laid out where I wanted my crossbars to be and tried to put them at about an even amount distance between each other, except for up here on the sunroof where I left a bigger distance so that way if I wanted to, I could use the sunroof. I then drilled holes into the side of the 3-inch angle aluminum. As you can see, they're quite crooked. They almost look like a Dr. Seuss book. Again, I did this in the middle of nowhere with some hand tools, so give me a little bit of slack. After drilling all the holes, I then placed the aluminum angle into the slots where they needed to go, left them loose, put the crossbars in where they needed to go, and then after that, I used these screws right here, which these fasteners are from T-Nuts, and they're supposed to be all weather, and as you can see, well, they're not really all weather, they're all rusted out. Anyway, I used those to tighten up the crossbars. From there, I made sure that it looked center, and then I tightened everything down. As I said, the side rails did come as raw aluminum, so I did paint those with a black spray paint of some sort. It was just a cheap black spray paint, no big deal at all. It's also a cheap paint job. Very little prep, and I did it quickly, so it's just coated with paint, so that way you don't see the raw aluminum. Well, aside from the places where the paint's kind of coming off, but at any rate. And then after that, I have a fully functioning, full length, full width rack for my 4Runner. Like I said, man, this rack has performed absolutely fantastic for the past 2 years. And I'm telling you, for the money, I just don't think that you can beat it. I've had up to 15 sets of traction boards up there at one time as I was traveling around to different shows. And a set of traction boards, 17 pounds a set. So you can do the math on that. It holds up some pretty good weight. That being said, it has not been without flaws. First and foremost would be the height of the crossbars. As you can see, when loaded down, those crossbars actually do touch the roof and have rubbed the roof and rubbed some of the paint off at the very front here. At the back, it's not so much of a big deal because it's spaced up higher. I would space the crossbars up just a tad bit higher. Also, speaking of the crossbars, I would not do the single channel or the small crossbars. I would do the double or maybe even triple channel crossbars for a little bit more width and a little bit more strength. This will, however, add to the overall price of the rack. These single bars have a tendency to kind of twist, whereas the double bars and the triple bars would not twist. To space them up higher, you could do a couple different things. You could increase the size of those spacers right there, or you could just go further up onto the angle there. And while we're on the subject of this angle, another thing I would do differently is I wouldn't have this little lip right here. So the 3-inch angle does a couple things. One, it makes it extremely stout, and it eliminates the need for a couple other little pieces whenever you're building your rack, primarily down here at the foot. But with this little lip right here, I'm kind of limited, whereas, you know, I could put things across the side if there was no lip there. If I did it all over again, I wouldn't necessarily have this lip here, I don't believe. I would leave it flat all the way across. That way, if stuff wanted to hang off the side, then it could, you know what I mean? Another thing I would do is some kind of a wind fairing. This thing makes a tremendous amount of noise. Now, luckily, I was able to mount my traction boards right up front here and eliminate just about all that wind. But before I did that, man, this thing was almost unbearable to ride in just because of the constant wind noise. And as far as talking on the phone goes, well, you can absolutely forget it. Some kind of a windscreen would be ideal right here and should eliminate that wind noise. To mount stuff on the side like awnings, it's pretty easy. You just find out where your holes need to be, drill them, and then run nuts and bolts. Depending on what you want to mount to the side of your rack, that 3-inch angle may not be large enough. This batwing from Rhino rack is a beast, and it required some redneck ingenuity, to say the least, to get it mounted up there. With the help of the guys from Arizona Toy Pros, I was able to get it up here by using this load rack from Rhino rack and just drilling it in to the crossbars. And we just use standard hardware to fasten it. I would have also added some sort of a sealant or a butyl tape or something right here at these bolt holes because, well, it leaks, unfortunately. The reason I didn't use any sealant up there is because, well, I didn't think that I needed any sealant. You see, when I took the factory rack off, all it had was these little rubber washers, and, well, I reused those rubber washers, so I didn't think that it'd be a problem. Turns out I was wrong. Another downside to the way that I mounted these extruded aluminum crossbars is in order to use any of the fancy hardware that really makes extruded aluminum cool, you'd have to unbolt it at least from one side, lift it up, and then slide the hardware in. The only real way that you could avoid this is if you just put the hardware in all at the same time while you're building your rack, which you could probably do, but later on down the road, if you want to add or take away on your roof rack, that could be a real pain in the ass, you know what I mean? All in all though, man, I'll tell you, I've been extremely happy with this rack. It's performed extremely well. It's held up to everything that I've put it through. I've been able to mount things on top, on the side. Like I said, I've been able to stand up there, have other people stand up there. It's held up to tremendous weight, and it's held up to the abuse that I put it through. Now, to the question of whether or not it's actually worth it to save the money to build your own rack, well, let's dive into it a little bit. Like I said, whenever I built this rack, it was about $500 all in, and today's money is just a little bit different. Also, I would make those upgrades that I told you about. So let's price it out with the upgrades I told you about and today's money. First, let's take a look at this 3-inch angle aluminum here. I went with 8-foot strips. I had 2 of them, so both of these are $159 each, which is crazy. Plus, I had that 45-degree angle cut in the front, which cost a little extra as well. All right, when I originally built my rack, I went with the cheapest extrusion I could find, which is this 10 series extrusion. And like I said, I did the 1x1 right here. The goal for the roof rack was to be able to hold a 4x8 sheet of plywood. So for length, I actually went with 48 inches, I believe, right at that 48 inches in order to do that. And then I had to get it tapped on both sides in order to mount it to that angle and use their quote-unquote all-weather hardware that also came through. So that's a total of $16.40. I got a grand total of 12 of these to go across the full 8 foot of the roof rack. So as you can see right here, it's $196 to build it the same way. So $200 for this, $320 for the angle pieces. This does not include shipping on any of that. It does not include that 45-degree angle, and it does not include any of the paint or the other hardware. It's safe to say that if I were to rebuild the same exact rack, I'd be at $700 or $800 all in. Now let's see what it would be if I were to rebuild it the way that I want to. The way that I would want to do it now is I would either use this 1x2 or this 1x3 for the additional strength. If I do the 1x3 and then I do that same 48 inches in length here, now I'm going to need to machine it, but this is actually going to require machining in 3 different places. It's also going to require 3 pieces of hardware per 12, right? Now, being that there's 12 of them, or being that they're a lot thicker, I probably wouldn't need 12. I would probably only do 10 of these. And this is $386. So call it $400 plus the 320, that's $720, plus the paint, plus the hardware, plus those little pieces from McMaster that we have to get to space it up, and then get that fairing and everything set up. It's safe to say that I'm well into this rack, $1,000, before I even get it built. There were quite a few obstacles that we had to overcome in order to install the Rhino Rack Batwing onto my DIY roof rack. And this is often the case anytime that you try to take applications that are out on the market and fix them into something that you custom built. So let's take a look at a fully modular ecosystem of products and solutions for roof racks and see how it compares. I think I know the perfect place for us to go. Let's roll. So I'm here inside of the North American headquarters for Rhino Rack, just outside of Denver, Colorado. And in my opinion, they make probably the most versatile ecosystem of roof storage. Let's check it out. So first and foremost, one of the coolest things about Rhino Rack is the massive amount of fitments that they have for all sorts of different vehicles. And the secondary really cool thing about Rhino Rack is they have all sorts of types of accessories that work seamlessly with their Pioneer platform and some of their other racks. So if you go right here to products, you'll see that they offer roof trays, roof racks, truck bed racks, all kinds of different awnings, different work solutions, and various different fittings that you can fit things up on your roof. Another cool thing is that you can go right here to Fit My Vehicle, and they will basically walk you through the steps that you need in order to get the perfect solution. So we're obviously going to put it on the roof, and I drive a Toyota 4Runner, and mine is a 2015. And of course it's an SUV. So mine does have the roof rails, and basically what this is you can get a Pioneer platform that will attach with the crossbars or roof rails rather that you already have, or you can get it to attach with your factory crossbars, or you can get the entire system, which removes the roof rails that you have stock. And that's the one that I'm interested in showing you guys, because ultimately the one that I built, I removed the entire roof rack. And this is what it's going to look like, and it's going to consist of 2 different pieces. It's going to consist of that piece that you see right here mounted to the factory holes where the factory roof rack went, and then up on top you see that Pioneer platform. And that Pioneer platform is pretty much their standard platform. That is what you're getting whenever you look at a Rhino Rack system. And the Pioneer platform is going to come with that backbone that you need. Now you've got 2 different sizes here. You got an 84 inch and then you got a 76 inch. And remember I told you that that mine particular one that I built was 96 inches, so it's right at 8 foot. So I want to get as close as that as possible. I'm going to go with this one right here. All right, and this is the Pioneer platform itself, including this backbone that mounts directly to the factory bolt holes where the factory rack goes. So you're going to take off your factory roof rails along the side there and then put this in its place. And as you can see, the MSRP on it is $14.97. All right, we got the Pioneer platform added to the cart here, and this is going to include the backbone, which is the mounting system that you need in order to put it on top of the 4Runner. Everything all included, all the hardware and everything's $1,497. Might as well call it $1,500. Shipping is $100 flat rate shipping anytime that you're shopping. RhinoRack.com, they have flat rate shipping. Anything over $1,000 is $100. So that's that. I do have a promo code for you guys. Promo code SirWilliamGoes. Get you $225, close to $230 off. So $1,273.28 for the rack there. That's everything all included. Shipped to your door, it'd be $1,373, and that's pretty damn good. Here we are a year later after installing the Rhino Rack Pioneer platform and some other Rhino Rack accessories. And the reason that I waited a year in order to make this video is because, well, everything works great when it's brand new, and I don't like to give my honest feedback on something until after I've used it for quite some time. My honest feedback on the Rhino Rack Pioneer platform and then the Rhino Rack ecosystems of products is, well, it's great, and it all works flawlessly together. That's the really key takeaway here. Because it is their ecosystem, everything works flawlessly together, and I really, really like that. For instance, in order to mount this solar panel up here, I just simply use their Swift locks. Same thing with this large case up here. And these little eyelets, they just slide right on into the track and then you tighten them down. The awnings do the same exact thing. Same with the traction boards. They're mounted up there using their traction board holder, and as you can see, the action tracks just fit flawlessly right there. Now, just like normal, not everything is puppy dogs and rainbows. I do have a few complaints, and I'll go over them with you. My Batwing awning is absolutely phenomenal, but as you can see, the cover is starting to rip. Same story over here on my Sunseeker awning. And last but not least, I did have a minor hiccup in Baja after some pretty heavy duty abuse. And by abuse, I mean like doing like 70, 80 miles an hour through washboard roads, big whoops, different things like that. The backbone, which is the bracing system that holds the Pioneer platform, actually broke on one of the tabs that mount to the Pioneer platform. Now, I'm not 100% sure that this was their fault. Not only was it, like I said, under some pretty abusive conditions, also I noticed when they sent the new backbone, because it was covered under warranty, I noticed that it had two different types of installs that were a little bit confusing. And basically, whenever I got it installed the first time, they didn't have a washer that went through that mounting point into the Pioneer platform. So what I will say, when you get your Pioneer platform with the backbone system, it comes with two different sets of hardware. I'm not real sure the reasoning behind this, but I highly, highly recommend putting a washer underneath that, and I'll show you what it looks like. So as you can see there, where it's bolted up through that tab, that's where it broke, but prior it did not have a washer there, and now you see that it's got a washer and a lock washer there. And like I said, the set of instructions that came with it offered two different ways to install it. I'm not real sure why, but one of them said to install it without that washer, and one of them said to install it with the washer. I'm in here to tell you I would install it with the washer because that helps to kind of equalize the pressure pulling up on that thing all the way around. Overall, though, I've been extremely satisfied with it throughout the year that I've had it up here on Apple. Like I said, that ecosystem is the really big thing. Everything just mounts to it flawlessly. Also, it makes zero noise. Remember I told you my homemade one made all sorts of noise, and it doesn't have any leaks, which again, I told you my homemade one did have some leaks. So with all that being said, to save only $300 to build my own, I wouldn't do it again. I would just go with the Rhino Rack. I definitely recommend checking out Rhino Rack, as they make a really badass rack. They make a really cool ecosystem of products, and they're really easy to deal with. Remember, RhinoRack.com to go check out all their products, and you can save a little bit of money by using the promo code SirWilliamGoes. By using that promo code, you do help out the channel, as I get paid a small commission that's not charged to you. So I really appreciate it a lot, as it helps me make these videos. I really appreciate you watching this video. Hopefully you liked it. If you did, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you want to see more videos like it, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And until next time, you guys keep hanging in there like a hair on a biscuit. And remember, you can be happy if you've a mind to. Peace. Peace, y'all.